we think about the steps to wealth, the very first step to wealth is planning. We talked about it a lot. It's interesting that it creeped into a few of our discussions over the last few weeks, into the real estate discussion with Jason and Raquel, and it also crept into the discussion about how Jamal and Ashley paid their house off, how it all begins with planning. And so a big part of planning is, that B word, budgeting. I know when we say budgeting, it makes some want to run for the hills. And I get it. I understand it. Can cause you to think that budgeting is a restrictive process, is a tool of restriction. But I want to have you think of it differently. I want to challenge you to think of budgeting / planning / telling your money where to go, whatever words we in finance, we keep coming up with different words because people don't like the word budgeting, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. Budgeting is freedom. It is it's the first tick mark on what we used to deal with in the whole series about flight path, our flight path to wealth, taking flight or financial freedom. So for that matter, let's start. I want to remind us of some of the discussions we've had before. Let's deal with this taking flight series. I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. How about that? Can you all see this slide, this taking flight slide?
Yes. Yes.
This taking flight is part of a series and part of a play that Yvonne and I and others put on back in 2017.
Sarah! Yeah. How did you do on your interview? Girl, I got an offer. You did? Yeah. Ford Motor Company in Detroit. Of course, you know it. I am so happy for you, Sarah.
Son, credit is the American way. You deserve to live a little now.
Guess you got a point.
Yeah, Kiana, I'll be there. But if it's full of Rudy Poos, I'm ghost. We can't afford a Lexus and a home in Belleville and all this fancy jewelry you give me. Marco, I appreciate it, honey, but we can't keep living like this together.
Change? You knew who I was when you was flipping, girl.
I want to know what flipping is.
Really? And we're not going to go through the whole skit, but let's just pull out some of the foundationals from this Taking Flight series. We want to get to this retirement picture of lemonade on a beachfront or on a lakefront, right? Typically, we don't start there. We start where you have two folks coming together, and perhaps you have a situation where one is in crisis, got this brother here in crisis, his give is low, his savings is low. This red thing here, his savings is zero, his giving is zero. Oh, but his spending is high, and it tends to be included with debt, and then spending on others is high. So this brother's in a woeful state where he's not able to give and not able to save. And we understand all of the reasons for it. We've considered all of the reasons that particularly we as African Americans find ourselves in the state that we're in. We can talk about the hundreds of years of enslavement. We can talk about Jim Crow and segregation. That's this timeline below. And then we could talk about mass incarceration that crept in the 70s. And all the while we were dealing with convict leasing and redlining and gentrification, and of course, terrorism from groups like KKK and riots and bombing and terrorizing our businesses, such as in Tulsa and in other areas of the United States. We understand all of these underpinnings, and we want to never forget this, but we want to diminish this enough so that we can move, y'all. Because I feel like sometimes when we concentrate, it's just like Lot's wife, when we concentrate on looking back too much, it can impede us from moving forward. And we don't want that. We want to understand what has gone on in the past so that we don't repeat it in the future. And we also want to the extent that we can, we want to begin incorporating new or principles that perhaps we did in the past, but we're not doing now. All right, so all that's just to get us with a firm foundation. Some of us surely find ourselves in a situation in our give, save, and spend meter or gauge, if you will, where we're spending too much, be it on clothes and jewelry or on debt. And then we have other situations where we could have more of a stable situation. We have the young lady here that's depicted where she's a prodigious saver and she's even able to give back some. And she doesn't have a lot of debt, but her spending in this scenario is out of control. This is what this gauge is depicting here, where you see the peak of the gauge is pointing towards giving, and then the right side is saving. So you can see how the savings is more than the giving. So this is just kind of showing a scenario where a person is not in crisis here, where they're not able to give or save. They're more stable here, where they're able to give some and they're able to spend some on debt. But for the most part, she's in good shape because she has a good idea of how to save, but her spending's out of control. Another scenario where we have another scenario here where this couple comes together, right? And this could be the picture. This could be the picture for us as married couples, right? Where the tendency, well, the numbers just show it. I don't even have to hesitate, right? The numbers show it. And we talked about it last week. The median net worth of most Black households is $1,700. So I'm using these terms, and we used these terms last time. Queenie, that's starting to, you got to stop that. You're making me, it's a lot going on.
Well, hello, family. I just wanted to add a little edit to the video, and I want to add let's call it a reel. Just want to get real in that, in the middle of this video. I mean, you'll see things get a little bit, I don't know, tense. I don't know. That might be even stretching it, but Queenie was getting on my nerves a little bit. And what you didn't see was that there was somebody that was coming in and out of the meeting. There was some kind of technical thing where somebody was coming in, then they left, and they come in, then they left, and they came in, and Queenie was like clicking to let them in, and I'm trying to remember the lesson like I was flowing, almost like think about how a rapper would be flowing freestyle. I was freestyle teaching. I had studied my lesson, and I was kind of freestyling on the information, the biblical text, the context, the geology, and basically how I wanted to transition from this biblical proverb into some budgetary items. And I'm chuckling because this is not easy. I'm gifted to teach, so I'm able to do it, but it's just not easy. And this was a situation where I just got a little perturbed, and you'll hear it. I was thinking about editing it out. I think it's useful to go in and leave it in. I'm just telling you what happened, what's going on behind the scenes. And later on, I apologized to Queenie because I don't want to come across as harsh to her. But I was just, well, not but, I don't want to come across as harsh to her. So I apologized. The reason that I was coming across harsh, however, is because all of the stuff that was going on in the background, the clicking of the mouse. One of my sons was slamming a coffee cup onto the desk, which is where the microphone is mounted. So I knew there was going to be a lot of feedback into the microphone because of that. And then I had one son that he just flat out didn't make it to the meeting for no really good reason. And all of this was kind of playing out in the back of my mind as I was trying to teach. So I just wanted to be real. These are the things that's happening sometimes. I mean, it's real, y'all. This is our opening up our home, our house church, if you will, opening up to everyone else. So things happen, right? It's real. Things happen. That's real family things that happen. And I just wanted to share that with you as far as what was going on. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave it in. So you'll see it as it is.
You make me have to stop my flow. It's affecting me now.
Like you do it when people are trying to enter the room.
I don't know. Give me a few seconds. Like let them cue a little bit, and then maybe, in the name of Jesus, for peace and for love, just maybe let them cue for a few minutes, and then kind of let them in. Otherwise, because all this, like what y'all don't see, y'all is just a whole bunch of clicking and a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm trying to go from my memory here, and it's affecting me. So keep me in prayer as we teach. It's not easy to teach budgeting, y'all. So keep me in prayer. Thank you. All right, where we are. Okay, so we have this couple coming together, and it's strenuous. So even where you had a situation where the young lady had some good financial principles, he didn't have good financial principles. And so now you have this coming together, and they're struggling. Their spending is out of control. They're able to give, they're trying to give a little bit back to the church or to charity, and they're trying to save a little bit, but quite frankly, they have a debt situation that's out of control, most likely credit cards, and then their spending is out of control. So you see how, and this is the look, right? I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, this is the look perhaps we have now, or this was the look when we came together where one spouse, it's just typically the way it goes, right? And I believe really the reason why God puts us together is so that we can help one another. There's typically one spouse that's very strong as it relates to budgeting, and then there's another spouse that's not as strong when it relates to financial matters or budgeting. And so now when you come together, it's not like you're going to come together and then all of a sudden everything's hunky-dory. It just doesn't work like that. Now you're coming together and you're struggling because you're going to have a decision to make, right? You're going to have to either succumb to the negative ways, the negative flow, how you look at money, or you're going to have to press forward and just be humble and say, you know what, honey, I don't know what I'm doing. You seem to be better at finances. Let's take a look at what you're doing. Let's take a break here. I'm going to come back here. And all right, if I did that right, did it come back to our screen, to video?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank y'all. Bless you. So let's go to the word. Let's go to the word here. Yvonne's going to read for us. We're going to go to Proverbs chapter 6, and we're going to deal with verse 6, 1 through 8, so that we can deal with what says the Lord, what says the Bible about the need for budgeting or the need for planning for wealth related items. I'm going to deal with Proverbs 6, 1 through 8. And I would have you also go to 1 Corinthians 16, 1 through 4. And then Romans, I need someone to help me with Romans. Romans 15, 0 and 27. The scriptures we're dealing with is Proverbs 6, 1 through 8. 1 Corinthians 16, 1 through 4. Romans 15 and 27. The one I need help with is that Romans 15 and 27. Anybody got that one for me? Deal with what the Bible says, what the Lord instructs us as the wisest man that ever lived, Solomon. We know about King Solomon, right? That same King Solomon. So we're set here in around 900 or so BC, and we're in Solomon's reign, and he's writing these proverbs. He's writing these proverbs to his sons, to his children, and by way of extension, he's writing these proverbs to all the young men and young women of the time, all the older all the older men and women of the time, and indeed men and women throughout all time, because it's wisdom and it's knowledge and it's applicable then just as it is now. So let's listen to what Solomon has to say about counting the costs, if you will. Proverbs 6, 1 through 8.
My son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand with a stranger, thou art snared with the words of thy mouth. Thou art taken with the words of thy mouth.
So what's this? So let's talk about this, right? What's that in that first verse, right? It talks about a surety with a friend. You've entered into debt. You've entered into a contractual relationship. Here nowadays, we'll call it an IOU, or we'll call it other words for it is a lien, a credit card contract, a mortgage. I mean, there's all kind of debt instruments. This person that we're talking about here that Solomon is dealing with is a person that has entered into a debt contract, in this case with a friend. We can extrapolate that with a bank too, though. So how are we to deal with that? We've entered into this dealings, this contractual dealing with another party. And Solomon says you've basically put yourself into a snare. Now listen, I know that in the United States of America, we are heavily leveraged, another word for debt, up to our eyeballs. And I know that simultaneously, I wouldn't be teaching right if I didn't say, look, debt is still a snare. It's still a snare. It's something that, to the extent and when we can get out of it, we should. And I'm backed by Solomon, the wisest person in the world. So let's see what he says. Continue, please.
Verse 3. Do this now, my son, and deliver thyself when thou art come into the hand of thy friend. Go humble thyself and make sure thy friend.
I don't want us to miss this, right? there's a tendency that we don't get into debt anymore with friends. I mean, back then there was the transaction was was familial, and it still can be familial. But I want you to know that this also, by extension, deals with banks, with other lending institutions, with family, with friends. It's the same principle. Be humble. He's saying, go to your debtor with humility. How? How do you do that?
Give not sleep to thine eyes, nor slumber to thine eyelids.
Don't be lazy about it. There is an intensity that we should have about counting the cost and about removing ourselves from the snare of debt.
Verse 5, deliver thyself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, and as a bird from the hand of the fowler.
You should have the urgency of a gazelle. A roe as a gazelle. You should have gazelle urgency about getting out of this debt. As a bird, as someone who is ensnared by a hunter, as someone who is ensnared by a fowler, a bird catcher and a hunter of gazelles in this case, or any other type of animal, and then a bird. He's using this metaphor to let us know how urgent it is that we release ourselves from these debts.
Verse 6, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise.
So here, Solomon is a king, so he speaks as a king. Solomon ain't doing that politically correct talk like we do today, right? It does not appear that he's worried about his children's feelings here. He's saying, look at the ant. You old lazy one, old sluggard, old one who is so lazy as it relates to your financial dealings. All you have to do is just look at the ant. Look how even an ant has energy as it relates to their business affairs. Keep going.
Verse 7, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest.
So there you go. Even the ant knows how to budget. The ant is basically setting aside, budgeting, setting aside, apportioning, in this case, resources that's important to an ant, food, dirt, whatever is important to an ant. Even an ant knows to do the set asides. So how much more should we, who are humans, know that we need to have the ability to set aside, to apportion, so that budget. So let's go to the etymology of these words, right, to help us. What actually does budget means? Well, it's a French etymology, and it literally just means a leather pouch. It's a leather pouch that you would have in antiquity. You would have kept your business dealings, your filings as related to business. So then you should ask, okay, well, Carlos, well, what does business mean? What are you talking about as it relates to business? Let's go to this 1 Corinthians, and we're gonna dig deep, y'all. We're gonna set this foundation so that we can have a good launch as it relates to wealth and budgeting. Go ahead to our 1 Corinthians.
We're in 1 Corinthians chapter 16,
yes,
verses 1 through 4.
So this is, thank you, Queenie. Excuse me for breaking in. I get excited. You know I get excited. Now so I wanted you to see the totality of the Bible, right? I want you to see Old Testament Solomon. Now we're fast forwarding nearly 1,000 years. Now we have Paul on the scene here, and Paul's writing a letter to the church at Corinth, and he's talking about getting our affairs in order so that we can help one another. And we're going to deal with this, y'all. We're going to we're going to extract, even if we got to go word by word, we're going to deal with the reason why. Why do we need to budget? Why do we need to plan our financial affairs? Paul's letter to the church at Corinth.
1 Corinthians 16, starting at verse 1. Now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given order to the churches of Galatia, even so do ye.
Yeah. There's something going on where we need to collect money as it relates to the saints in Jerusalem. Does it say it yet? Am I ahead of myself? Just now, let me stay where we are and get excited. Let's just stay on verse 1 because there's a lot right here, right? Now, concerning the collection for the saints. All right, now let's talk about how we go about as Christian folk, how we deal with resources. Concerning the collection, I want you to take the same order that I've given to the church at Galatia. You need to set aside. Now, let's go back to this budget. If we're setting aside, then isn't that budgeting? Hello? If we're taking a minute to say, okay, this portion is going to be the portion that's collected for the help of the saints, then we're budgeting. As soon as we did that, y'all, we're budgeting. At least, look, simple budget, right? I started with a 3. I start with like give, save, spend, right? This is a simple budget. Give and whatever else, right? Give and maybe spend. But at least you're starting with, I'm going to put this part aside for giving, is what Paul is advising us. He's advising us to budget. But who is he talking to as far as budgeting when it relates to giving? This is very important when it relates to giving money in this case. What is the money? And in this time, money, or let's say resources, right? Because it could have been silver, it could have been food, it could have been grain, any type of resource, tradable resource. But he's not talking about time. He's talking about treasure here. So he's not talking about time or talent. He's literally talking about treasure here. The last part. Oh, go to 2. I'm sorry. Verse 2.
Upon the first day of the week,
When?
let every one of you lay by him in store, as God hath prospered him.
So he gives us a timing for this budgeting too. Once a week, let's put aside as God has prospered you. As God has prospered you. This is the part in all humility, in all love, and all grace that I pray that our brothers and sisters do a better job of. I remember when I was sitting on a board for a church one time, and a leader of said church was saying, well, I'm going to start doing this series on tithing because we need to bring in more money. And I said, well, if you're going to do a series on tithing, then we need to do a series on wealth building, because people are to give out of their prosperity. As God hath prospered them. As God has prospered him. That's the ones that he's talking to. He's not saying poor people of Corinth, I want you to give to the poor people of Jerusalem. He's not saying poor believers of Galatia, give to the poor people of Jerusalem. Hmm. there is this tendency, particularly in the Black church, where we put giving ahead of everything. We put giving ahead of even wealth building, even prospering. We don't even talk about how do we cause our people to be prosperous before we talk about giving, and it's out of order. Read verse 2 again. I don't want you to think this is not from the book of Los, y'all. This is Paul writing to the church of Corinth, and he's telling you with specificity who is to give to the poor. Read that verse 2 again, please.
1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 2. Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store, as God hath prospered him, that there be no gatherings when I come.
There's an urgency about it. I need this money to be ready for when I come. I'm on my way to Corinth. When I get there, I need the bag, as we say today. I need the bag to be ready so that I can bring it to the impoverished in Jerusalem. Go ahead and read the next so we know the Jerusalem part.
Verse 3. And when I come, whomsoever ye shall approve by your letters, them will I send to bring your liberality unto Jerusalem.
Liberality gifts. You're talking the bag. Let's just bring the bag. Whoever you say are trustable, that's who's going to come with me to bring this bag to Jerusalem. Whoever you tell me is trustworthy, then they're going to join me on this horse so that we can get this money to Jerusalem. That's what he's saying.
Verse 4. And if it be meet that I go also, they shall go with me.
Yeah, if it be meet, meaning if it makes sense, if it's good planning for them to go, then we'll go together. That's that meet part. So do you hear me can you feel me about this part about giving out of prosperity? So you go back to this word prosper. So what does the word prosper mean? You go back to the etymology of this word, it actually means good journey. The etymology of prosper means someone that's having a good journey. Someone that's another, maybe even more apt definition is someone who is doing well in business. Someone who's doing well in business. So what does business mean? Business goes to the Old English, so we don't even have to go to a different language. Business is from busyness. Someone who is busy. But we know that we're talking, we want to deal with prosperous business people, right? So we don't want to talk about those that are in crisis, because if we're just busy and there's no flow, there's no money coming in, how are you going to give? What do you have to really give as far as monetarily? Now you have your time and your talent. I'm not saying don't give anymore, but as it relates to cash flow, you have not prospered enough to give. We got to get you prosperous first. Let me share this. Let me share what this looks like again. It's like this brother here, right? You got debt out of control. Can y'all see this slide again? Can y'all see this give, save, spend slide?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is setting up, hey, my sis. So this is setting up the three areas of a budget. Very high level, when we do our budget, we're going to have a category for giving, a category for saving, and a category for spending. And then in that category for spending, we got to know what part of that spending is going to debt and what part is going to everything else. You see how that's how it gets to 4, but it's really 3 because the spending is in 2 parts. You see that? So if you look at here, you look at this crisis type of situation. And oh, by the way, I know we floss and we act like, we got it going on, but many of us, beloveds, many of us are in this crisis situation. So we got to figure this out. If what we're looking at, the kingdom, the ideal situation is for us to have, we're given a good deal to savings, we're giving a good deal to spending, or we're giving an equitable amount to spending, and we're giving an equitable amount to giving. If this is the ideal, this blue triangle, where we are as it relates to this brother, that's depicted on the slide, is crisis. We're nowhere near where we should be as far as the prosperous, as far as this for 1 Corinthians 16, giving as those who have prospered. He's not prosperous, y'all. So as a church leader, I don't want to talk to this. I don't want to browbeat this brother and say, oh my goodness, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you giving? You should be giving more. And this is what happens. Hey, this is what happens a lot in the church. You got this brother, or it could be a sister here. I just put it on the man right here on this one, right? Literally drowning in debt, drowning in his own spending, and you're coming to him talking about giving. It's not biblical, y'all. It's not right. We got to first teach this brother how to be prosperous, how to be that person that's able to give out of their prosperity. You see that? Amen. So back to the biblical principles. It says, so I want to deal with these words, you all. Hit me again with that. There's something about business affairs. Which verse is that?
Liberality and Jerusalem.
Give me another. Hey, who has another translation, like NIV translation of 16 of 1 Corinthians 16 and 2? We're setting the foundation, y'all. The reason why we need the budget. Thank you all so much for coming to our talk today.
Yes, sir. What I have is 1 Corinthians 16 and 2.
16 verse 2. Yes, ma'am.
All right. On the first day of every week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with his income, saving it up so that when I come, no collections will have to be made.
Yeah, there's an urgency there. So what I want to talk about here is this how do you become prosperous? What did he mean by to prosper there? Well, what it meant, if you go all the way back, you all to the derivation, the Greek in this case, it's talking about someone who's doing well in travel, and it also is talking about someone who's doing well in business affairs. So then you break down business affairs. So business, like I said before, is busyness, and then affairs is to do. So it's to do busyness, right? But I want to bring it current. Currently, the to do would become ordered, right? This is a codification. This is a ordered, a structured, a systematic way to do business. You see there? So this business affairs turns into ordered business. And it's not a leap to say that what we're really talking about here is producing prosperous resource flow. We have a business. We are busy producing prosperous resource flow. Resources can be in time, treasure, and talent. The prosperous business person, whether we're talking about the business of running a home or the business of running a corporation, LLC, anything else, we're talking about someone who is adept at causing their actions to make resources flow prosperously. I want us to think about money as a flow, not as an ending, but as something that's flowing. How do you mean, Los? What are you talking about? Something that's flowing. So when you talk about resources, let's get very simple, y'all. Let's talk about one of the simplest resources that we have on earth, which is water. Right? Water. What if you had a stream that was a mile away from your house in the village? Let's get real primitive, right? So that we can nail this about prosperity and prosperous flow. You got a river and you need to get water daily. How are you gonna get water from that river to your house? What are some ways, y'all? Talk to me.
With a collection of it.
A collection. What are you gonna use to collect this, sis?
Oh, that was my question. So how are we gonna collect it?
Yep. How you gonna collect your water? You gotta get water back to your house daily. You gotta get. I'll give you a number, sis. You gotta have at least for the functioning of your house. You need at least 10 gallons of water every day. How are you gonna get it there?
All right. So God has blessed me with a husband and 3 children.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that's 5,
Yep.
and we're gonna use those blessed hands, and we're gonna get us some 5-gallon
There you
water
go.
containers, and we're gonna go and
Yep.
collect our water. And we should.
There you go. My sister's they're gonna go out together and they're gonna grab their buckets and they're gonna collect it in the river and they're gonna come back. They're gonna walk that mile out there and they're gonna walk that mile back to get that bucket so that they have their water. Now, what I love about this model is that, look, my sister, she's not lazy. Remember, King Solomon said, consider the ant. They're not lazy. They're not a lazy family. They're getting together. They got a plan. They're going out to get that water in the buckets. So that took all that planning. Go get the water from the river, bring it back. You see that? Planning, budgeting their time. The resource in this case is water. You see that?
Amen.
I would say that at least if we looked at the continuum of, if we talked about like going from crisis to thriving, that's at least surviving. At least you're doing what it takes to survive there. What would crisis look like? Well, crisis in that case would be like the slugger. There's no flow at all. You're just not going to go. You're not going to get a bucket. You're not going to get anything to get the water. So you have zero flow. Remember that depiction I had the sister where there's some flow. I mean, she's basically getting some flow. That I would say that is how you're going about getting the resource, right? The size of the bucket, right? So you can go from using a spoon to a ladle to a bucket, but there's something that you're actually going physically to the water and then bringing the water back. Now, those who sat there and listened to Jason and listened to Raquel last week, they spoke about, and you may not have heard it, but they talked about passive income. So this is where money is a flow. This is where money is flowing to you in your sleep. You didn't have to get up and get a bucket to get it to come there. This is not being lazy because you did a lot of planning up front to create a system that the resource just flows to you. What does that look like in water, y'all? Let's stay. Vaughn said to give y'all. Vaughn Coleman said I gotta give y'all time when you're thinking about stuff. So
You can either dig a ditch or a well.
Yep. I heard my brothers. I heard the two builders. Well, that's something. God bless you. God bless you, Jason. God bless you, Mr. Brown. My two builders on the phone. They got the building, Jack, and that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Reverend Brown said, dig a well or a ditch or something like that. You said, Brown? Yeah, Minister Brown. Or was that Burl? My bad.
It may have been Burl.
Burl, was that you saying something?
I was trying to get in, but somebody else was talking.
Probably Jason.
All right, it's you and Jason, but you go ahead, Burl. What'd you say?
That was my first thought, to automate it and to get some type of pumping system.
Pumping system. So you're gonna bring the water right to your land by pumping that water up by way of a well or something like that. That's my engineer talking. Then I got my builder. What'd you say, Jason?
I said ditch or well.
There you go. We're gonna build some kind of a ditch so that the water just flows from the river. He's tapping off of that river, and he's gonna cause that water to flow right to his home. And in both of these cases, now you don't have to work as hard to get the water. You see how it becomes passive income of the resource in this case, which is water. What does that look like with money, y'all? What does that look like with money? Well, what it looks like with money is, well, first of all, when we're budgeting, we can see, wait a minute, I'm not getting enough flow. There's something wrong. I'm using a spoon, I'm using a ladle, or a different way to say that is, I need to go back to school to get some more knowledge so that I can get some more resources, or I need to come up with a new plan, a new widget, a new invention so that I can get more cash flow. But there's something that I need to do because I'm looking at my budget and there's not enough flow in my budget. But the reason why I know it is because I'm budgeting. I'm looking at my give, my save, and my spend, and it's off. And this becomes the foundation, y'all, of the reason why we budget. Some parting thoughts about why we want to budget. First of all, it's biblical. It's biblical all through antiquity, the Old Testament. You bring it all the way to the New. We're talking in the Old Testament, we're talking about, look, Solomon, old sluggard, look at the ant. Even the ant apportions, puts aside resources. And then you come to the New and you got Paul writing to the church at Corinth, look, I need you to put aside some resources so that we can help these starving brothers and sisters in Jerusalem. But if you're not, to follow my kind of water motif, if you're not to the point where you're able to get water quickly enough from the stream, then I don't want to take from your water. I want those who have enough resources where they have an abundance of resources. Those are the people that I want you to put a set aside. And what's the first step to have an abundance of resources is we need to have a plan. So we got to know where we stand, and that's where the budgeting comes in. The budgeting is our first step to freedom. It is biblical. The reasons why, it is the way that we get to a prosperous lifestyle or a thriving lifestyle. And it is how we cause ourselves to have prosperous flow of resources. And it is out of this abundance that we're able to give better, even save better, and spend better. This is the foundation of budgeting. What questions do you have? More to come in the weeks to come. Just wanted to kind of nail this foundation. We're gonna get into it, y'all. We're gonna do the rack. Don't worry. I know I'm looking at Von Coleman and I'm looking at Tammy. I know y'all gonna be comfortable with your spreadsheets and your racks and stacks and tools and things like that. We're gonna get to it. But today we just wanted to set the biblical and the resource and the emotional foundation. What questions do you have?
Good morning, this is Sister Brown. I'm thankful for this lesson this morning, as we spoke on yesterday briefly. Even to a point, like it's like everything that you need. When she was reading Proverbs, was it 6:1-6?
Yep, that's right.
And everything
1 through
you
8.
need
Yep.
is 1 through 8. Yeah, everything you need is in the Word. Even with wisdom, like you said, if you're gonna budget and not put yourself in debt, it's like you can be gullible and always accepting someone else's debt, like being a co-signer or a loaner. Yes, and never would have thought it was biblical. I'm just thinking, like I always tell my children, when you getting in relationship with somebody and they want to get an apartment or need lights or what, all that, if you co-sign or put your name on it, you're putting yourself in debt if they walk away. If they you setting yourself up, for to be in debt. So that's your credit. That's your good name. It keeps you from getting in a lot of binds and a lot of, and we, like you said, we do it a lot of time, but not thinking, that it's right to do because you're doing it with humility. But in the long run, it's gonna catch you in a trap, in a snare, if they decide, to walk away or you're all of that. So it's on you, sometimes. And so we have to be wise, and God wants us to use humility and wisdom with that. So yes, so I thank God for that. I got that, and I'm just like, I say that and I tell them, and I try to not to do it for myself, but then they never know it was biblical. Amen.
Amen. You got it. You got it. That's why we're here. Bless you. Bless you. What other questions or comments do you have? Oh, yeah. Hey, she's taking it in.
Carlos.
Hey, Brown.
How you doing, man?
Hey, Reverend Brown. How you doing?
Yeah, good morning. How y'all doing? I'm kind of piggybacking on what the wife said, but we also, in turn, to do it for our children that's coming up. We've had cases where when my girls was coming up, I would help them do this and help them do that, and in the end, I'm ending up stuck with the bills. So we need to towards our children too, because we don't want to tell them no, but we still have to be an example. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
That's it starts from the house. In other words, what I'm trying to say, it starts from home.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
Oh, you bet. And I like that motif that Solomon said. We're not trying to ensnare our children, right? So if we're co-signing, if we use that same very real example of co-signing, I mean, what you're doing when you're co-signing, you're basically putting yourself and your child in the snare of debt. That's not what you mean to do, but that's in effect what you're doing. And what Solomon is advising is, okay, you need to have an intensity about getting out of this snare. And simultaneously, you need to have humility, because you're the one that went to the friend, the family member, the banker, whoever you went to get yourself into this debt. And and now when the bill collectors call, you want to have an attitude. Yeah, well, you the one went got the debt. So you need to have a humility, the Bible is saying, in the form of Solomon. What you got, Vaughn?
And especially when you know that person is not, prosperous or have overflow. I mean, especially if you use wisdom with that. You know they can't pay it back.
Right.
You can set yourself up for it. It's a fail. Amen.
Bless you. And that's what and so that's why I wanted to talk about that. So now you're in that First Corinthians part. Shame on us for not teaching this better. We should be giving out of our abundance, right? So shame on us. Look, y'all, like we wouldn't do it. All right, can I just be real? I'm gonna be real. Can I just be real? Look, we wouldn't do it. You wouldn't go to that. You wouldn't go to that family member that you know is struggling and ask them for money. Like you wouldn't do that. You know that family member is struggling. You wouldn't go to them and say, you know what? We're trying to do X, Y, and Z. We're trying to put new granite in our, I'm just use that's something we need in our house right now. We're trying to do this new granite type of procedure in our house. You're not going to go to your most impoverished family member to help you with this, but that's what we do in the church. A lot of times we go to the most impoverished so that we can build onto the church house. Shame on us. It's not biblical and it's not right. Go ahead, Sister Vaughn.
Morning.
Good morning.
Don't start on me. I'm already at the first morning. What I wanted to say is my dad must have been kin to Solomon because they used to call him Stingy. And since I was the youngest, I saw a lot. So my dad was a laborer with great credit. My mother was the educator with no credit. So, which was very backwards, right?
Actually, there's a whole book on that. But there's a whole book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad that is exactly what you just talked about. Go ahead.
And by far, my dad did way better with no college education with his finances than my mother ever did with her 2 master's degrees, okay? And he said credit messed us up. He said, long as we know what we had and what we didn't have, we were able to make better decisions. So what I have done with my kids, everything I've had has been cash and cash. Unfortunately, I've never been able to go purchase a home, but I inherited 2. Okay? So I had to learn
from... Y'all hear that? Hey, what? Bless you, sis. You said that so nonchalant. Lord, have mercy. That's what we're talking about. Where's my bell? Reach me my bell, Jared. JD. It's right up there on the top shelf.
I'm hitting the ground.
That's Bond. You said it, so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about generational wealth. That sister says she got inherited not 1 but 2 pieces of property. That's what we're talking about, sis.
So it's kind of overwhelming because Daddy always say live within your means. Live within your means. And everybody thought he was rich. My dad never made over $10 an hour. But when I say he budgeted that $9.20, now I call it $9.20 to what? Debt. And people would laugh and he say they laugh at me, but when they need some money, they come to me. They used to call it stingy Jim. Stingy Jim. But anyway, to make it like my mom, you stingy. So something my sister shared with me right when Dad passed was, I said, thank God Daddy has some money in the bank. Because, I was trying to figure out when is the last time I actually worked, like punched the clock. I couldn't even 14. And I'm thinking, Lord, thank you. Thank you. I ain't missed a beat, ain't lost a pound, ain't lost nothing. And it's all God. It's all God. Yes. But I got off with it. But and my kids, like Charlie, he always thought we was rich. I don't know why people thought that. But he, I was thinking when I graduated, my mom always said, whoever graduates from college is going to get a new car. Of course, one of my dad's professions was a mechanic. Here I am with my brand new car. Never happened. Never got it. I always got these cash cars. But I'm saying all that to say, when I got pregnant with the twins, we're going to go to this professional budgeting class. The lady was like, look like you already got it. You're not in debt. You know not to get in debt. You know you're not bringing one baby home. You're bringing home two. So you got to make adjustments. So I'm just now dibbling and dabbling in credit only because I know the twins are graduating, and I think I did pretty good with Charlie, but like you said, two. Trying to maneuver that and just saying no. No and no, thank you, I guess, would be best.
Bless
But
you.
that's what I wanted to say. I just never got in it. I just said, no, I don't want people calling me for their stuff. And my mama said, you got them people for stuff, their money. They won't call you if you give them their money, but when you don't have a lot of money. So I've just been disciplined that try to stay streamlined as I go into my golden years. I don't want to be owing a lot of people.
That's right.
Bless you.
Thank you, Vaughn.
So what Vaughn is talking about, hey y'all, and I understand if you got to peel off, we're going over a little bit. I get it if you got to peel off, but this is too good. What she just described, and this is what look, y'all. When we're talking about wealth education, when we're talking about financial education, make no presumption that because someone has matriculated through the college system that they understand how to do this. In fact, chances are they don't. Because, all right, let me ask this. Who do y'all think, who are the biggest sponsors? Who are the biggest sponsors to colleges and universities? Let's get on down with it. We're gonna get on down with the get down. Who gives money? Who gives money to universities?
Parents.
Somebody said parents.
Family members.
Family members, parents. That's a share of it. But the biggest
ones
donors
are wealthy people.
Are wealthy people, or the biggest are corporations, banks, businesses, corporations. And so there is a tendency, not all the time, I'm just talking tendencies. There's a tendency for those who's educated through the collegiate system to learn how to work. They're not really in the business of teaching you how to gain, achieve, and maintain wealth. They're in the business of teaching you how to work. Because their benefactors need employees. You see what I'm saying? So the Dells, the HPs, the Bank of Americas, the Wells Fargo, the IBMs, the Microsofts, the Apples, they need workers. If you're wealthy, chances are you're gonna be like my sister. My sister's saying it. She's living this life and she's just sitting inside of it, so maybe she's not really getting it. But Vaughn, you are living inside of passive income because of wealth, because of the planning that your father did. You literally have assets such that you don't have to work. So what's net worth, right? Y'all heard my sister Raquel last week. You heard my brother Jason talk about it. It kept saying net worth, net worth, net worth. What is net worth? So that's why we got a budget too. That's what we're getting to. But overall, net worth is assets minus liabilities. Me and Yvonne have more degrees than a thermometer combined. Has anyone ever talked about your family net worth in any of those classes?
Nope, not at all.
Neither in mine. You hear me, y'all? More degrees sitting here than a thermometer. No class, hours and hours, even years of education. No one ever put a slide like this in front of us, y'all. What is net worth? Assets minus liabilities equals net worth. So what's assets? Assets is liquid cash, right? Be it in a checking account, in a savings account, retirement savings, real estate, autos, investment accounts goes in there too. 501ks and retirement accounts and also gold and silver. All of that goes into that asset category.
And pension.
Pensions, Lord, those of us who still are blessed to have them, yep, pensions go in there too. All of that goes into your asset category. Then look at your liabilities. Any debt, consumer debt, personal loans, student loan, mortgages, auto loans, other debt, all that goes into your liabilities. So let me do a quick math equation here. So class, and that includes the teenager sitting behind me. Okay, assets minus liabilities equals net worth. Okay, what if I have $1 million in assets and I have $2 million in liabilities? What's my net worth? Say it loud. Negative 1 million. If I got 2 million in assets, superstar. If I have 2 million in assets, superstars and rappers and all these people on TV always flossing and showing their stacks of cash and all this kind of stuff. But I got 2 million in liabilities rather, but I have 1 million in assets. Thank you for that, Wendy. 2 million in liabilities, but only 1 million assets. Guess what? I'm broke. I'm underwater to the tune of $1 million. I'm -1. I have negative net worth. All right. So let me ask this though. What if I have 250,000 in assets and I have 0 liabilities? What's my net worth?
250,000.
250,000, says Raquel. So that I'm paying homage to my beloved brother Hunter, the best top usher that I've ever seen this side of heaven. I'm paying homage to that brother. I don't care if all of his assets add up to 250,000, including his house. I don't know his business. I'm just throwing out a number. If it all adds up to 250,000, but you heard my sister say he don't believe in debt, but he's got 0 debt, then his net worth is better than someone who's got $1 million in assets. You see that? And that's what we're talking about, y'all. This is the urgency. This is the gazelle urgency, gazelle intensity that we're talking about. We got to get out of this liability trap. And how do we do it? The first step is knowing how to count the cost. So you're in the right series. We're at the right time such as this. We're gonna get through it together, y'all. We're gonna deal with this, how we gather, collect, and maintain wealth. And we're gonna do the first step, which is budgeting. Bless you so much. We're gonna end it there. Whew. Got a lot more to come. We're gonna deal with. We've been so blessed. We're gonna get to the nitty and gritty in the upcoming weeks, but right now we're just gonna leave it there. God bless you. I'm gone. Sister Young, talk to the people. Love
Wonderful lesson, Manny. Love your passion. Love the way you broke it down. I'm so excited for this series. I've been wanting us to get back to a financial series, so Please, everybody that's on the call, spread the word, invite your friends. And thank you for your patience as we went over a little today. As always, we want to close out with any prayer requests or testimony.